Okay, folks, I'll call this Town of Lodi regular meeting for the month of April to order. If we can, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for those we've lost. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Ross, give us a roll call, please.
Supervisor Barnhart.
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Latini. Councilman Batman.
Here.
Councilman Thomas.
Here.
Councilman Sibley. And Attorney at Law is both Mears and Fisher, or is one in specific this evening?
We'll take them both, Connie.
Got it.
All right, so up first on the agenda is a period for public comment. Mr. Benjamin reached out to be added to the agenda, so I'll ask him to speak first, though anybody in the public who wishes to speak on any topic may do so. Mr. Benjamin.
Thank you, Supervisor Barnhart. Thank you to the board. I don't want to take too much time, but I just want to start and say thank you for allowing me to provide some comments this evening. First off, a couple calendar dates. Saturday, May 8th is Seneca Mills Free Mulch Day. So any Seneca County residents can come up to the landfill on Saturday, May 8th between 7 and 11 and get their free mulch. July 25th will be our annual open house. That's Sunday, July 25th. Supervisor Barnhart, I believe he provided some neighbor notes to the board that I wanted to update you on if I could. I won't go through it all in great detail. You have it in front of you, and you can get at your leisure. We update our neighbors on an annual basis with our upcoming construction season, and so I'll dig right into it for the sake of time here. So if you drive up 414 up in Waterloo toward the thruway, at any point, you may see us on the outside slopes along 414 working. What we're doing is we're doing slope filling operations. We actually filled the inside of the slope most of last year, and now we're currently filling the outside slopes on the east side of the hill the same way. This will continue for the next few months with final grades, allowing us to place final cover along the east outer slopes this summer. All this filling is covered with soil on a daily basis per our DEC permit guidance. So to continue down that on the final cover area, so we will be installing 29 acres of updated final cover area. What this is it consists of compacted clay, synthetic liner, and soil to increase grades to prevent storm from landfill, and also it prevents surface emissions of landfill gas. We'll be doing 5 acres of new landfill liner, and then we'll also be doing another 17 acres of synthetic membrane as well. Again, the synthetic liner is also an encapsulation process as well, as I just mentioned, to prevent stormwater from entering the landfill and surface emissions of landfill gas. So why is that important to limit the surface emissions of landfill gas? We capture that gas and we send it to our energy partner, and they generate renewable natural gas, renewable electricity, last year our energy partner generated enough renewable electricity for over 18,000 homes. That equals all of Seneca County and plus some maybe. Something to know is this is green energy. It can be a domestic and a renewable source of electricity and natural gas, and it reduces our reliance on fossil fuels. And so one other point I'd like to highlight is introduce you to the Valley Infill development. We have applied with the DEC to utilize the middle area of the existing landfill footprint.
Come and see this.
I'll mute him.
And right now, what you have in our configuration is really a horseshoe configuration. And what we're doing is we're going to be filling that middle area of the horseshoe. So our footprint will not change. Our long-term plans will not alter the current dimensions of the landfill. The area that will be developed will minimize the size of the operational areas and reduce the potential for dust and odor. The resulting approval will enable us to operate for an additional 15 years at the current tonnage limit. No wetlands will be impacted and there will be no increase in noise. We'd like to invite all of you to come up for a tour at any point to learn more and understand the ins and outs of the entire operation. You can contact myself and we can schedule tours at any point. And we also ask everyone to keep an open mind throughout the permitting process. And again, available for questions. Happy to take a few questions here this evening or take them offline at any point. Thank you, Town Board. Thank you, Supervisor Barnhart. I'll go on mute unless there's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Benjamin. Do any members of the board have any questions for Mr. Benjamin tonight?
Yeah, I do. This is Seth. I looked at your well, the sheet that you've been referencing, and it had some things about your odor neutralizing systems. Could you just talk about more about what those are exactly, how they work?
Certainly, yeah, good question, Seth. So there are a couple of different pieces to it, to the system. So we do have some mobile units that are spraying deodorizers on the open operation for any given day to prevent garbage and waste odors from leaving our footprint. And then we also have perimeter deodorizing misters that are along the perimeter of the facility. Those are used strategically depending on weather conditions and also operational conditions as well. It's a very real-time setup depending on, again, operational activity and weather conditions.
Great. Any follow-ups, Mr. Thomas, or anybody else on the board?
Yeah, I just had one more question. You mentioned you partnered with Area Energy Corps to use that methane that's generated from the landfill. You said that. So I'm just curious, how does that work with that methane is burned to produce electricity, which goes back into the grid? How does that? I guess my question is how do you monitor that? Like how do you know where that goes as far as who gets to benefit from it? Because it's essentially a power generating plant, right?
Oh yeah, that's correct. So that power plant generates close to 18 megawatts of electricity, and how that happens is they are burning that methane in turbines, and then of course generates electricity. You might think of the engines similar to locomotive engines on trains, is how that electricity is actually generated. As far as benefit goes, what they do is they sell it back to the grid, primarily to NYSEG. And so You know, in theory, in theoretical terms, so when you get your NICEAG bill, you have an option to purchase renewable energy. I believe it's for an additional fee per month, and that, you know, that group of electricity from ARIA Energy is in that application through NICEAG. So if customers choose to harness in that theoretical sense, I think in a practical sense, the electricity, you know, can't really be transmitted other than directly to immediate customers. So I think, you know, in real practice, I think our county is really benefiting from that renewable energy.
Anything else, Mr. Thomas, or anybody else on the board?
I'm good. Thanks. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public like to speak this evening?
Hey Kyle, this is Maura Toole. Can I make a quick, really exciting announcement?
Please.
So this is open to the public. So several of the Finger Lake associations have teamed up to bring a lake-friendly awareness week. So this is for residents of the watersheds in the Finger Lakes to learn about things that they can do at their homes or in their neighborhoods to help protect and preserve the Finger Lakes, and particularly Seneca Lake, of course, for us Lodi residents. So the best way to find out about this very free, open, very informative is to go to a website, which I can put in the chat room, where you'll learn about all the different education sessions with experts and the events that you can sign up for. And then it will connect you to other resources so you can start to apply some of these techniques at your homes. So we're really excited. This is a team of the Finger Lakes associations working together to improve our community, our watershed, and our lakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. That's wonderful. That sounds great. I'll remind Lodi residents that we are actually in two watersheds. We are also in the Cayuga Lake watershed. The headwaters of Sheldrake Sheldrake Creek are in Lodi. So, you know, anybody else from the public would like to speak tonight? There is another public comment period towards the end of the meeting that you are welcome to voice your opinions. Hearing nobody else, we're going to move on. Next on the list is to approve the agenda. I will move to accept our agenda. Is there a second from a board member tonight?
Second.
Second from Mr. Batman. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda accepted. I delivered minutes to the board members this afternoon from Connie. Does anybody need more time to review the minutes from March? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the March minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Thomas. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks for voting, Bill. We appreciate it. Minutes accepted. Does anybody need more time to look at the bills? With that, I'll move to approve the bills. Is there a second?
Second, but I have a quick,
An enthusiastic second from Mr. Batman. Did you have comments, Paul?
yeah, I just had a quick question on, there was one invoice, I think this, well, I know it is. It's in the highway department file.
Okay.
About fuel from Mirabito for snow removal for $3,300. Why was that separated out from anything as far as fuel goes?
Rick, you want to address that?
Specific budget for snow removal.
Because there's two budgets for fuel, one from, I ain't got the paper in front of me, but one runs from fall through this month and the other one runs from this first and next month till October, November. So that's for not just for snow removal, that's everything we,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah,
everything through that 6 months.
I thought maybe there was, it was listed as just for snow removal, and I didn't think that was right. So that's,
It is correct, Paul. What it is that his highway budget allocates two specific different budget lines. One is for a duration of 6 months or so, and the next is for an additional period of time. That time bracket that was still eligible for the fuel to be used from the snow removal budget line is why it still allocates that it was for snow removal.
oh, I
Right.
see.
Right.
Right,
Two different budgets because of time frame.
right. Okay,
Did it-
Yeah.
Do you have a clear understanding or do
Yeah.
you?
takes care of me.
Okay.
Any other questions about the bills tonight? There is a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Right,
Any opposed? Bills paid, motion carried. Up next is a highway report. Mr. Jaycott, do you have one for us tonight?
Yeah, I got a little one. So, we swept in, the intersections in the village streets, raked in the roadsides, changed the air brake canisters and the self slack adjusters on the 012, serviced the roller, did some plowing and salting, put some coal patch down, put the stingers on the grader, hauled in around 5,000 ton of runner crush for Road, South Miller and Dean Road, and for some of the roads that need a little runner crush, when and if we're able to get any dust oil.
Is there a shortage of
That's
dust
it.
oil?
Oh yeah, they shut the pipeline down. You can't get nothing, they said, so. As
Who-
soon as
who
they
shut
did
it
it, your president, didn't he?
That's where the dust oil comes from?
Well, it comes down the pipeline. They have to refine it.
I mean, that's the only pipeline in the world that you can get,
Well, I don't know. All I know is what the salesman tells me.
right, yeah,
Sounds like a good racket.
So, yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't his president. Okay,
Thank you, Rick. Rick, I got an email from a constituent this month about potholes on Fox Road. Did you see that email?
Yeah, I seen it.
Anything we can do?
Yeah. Grade it up and make it dusty for her. We'll leave it until we find out when we can get some dust oil.
Okay. That is the message.
And
that
we tried grading up, Darlene Road. And if we're not getting any rain, so she's pretty dusty up there. So I told them not to grade anymore until we figured out when we could get some dust oil.
Okay.
So the only other thing I got is, me and you're gonna have to get together so we can, set up some sort of schedule on trading out equipment, cause now to order a new 10-wheeler right now, you're in almost 2 years away if you order it right now.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to get together and start changing stuff out every 10 years or something.
why
you
is that
know,
so long now?
sooner.
Rick,
Huh?
Paul's asking why it's such a long lead time on a 10-wheeler.
Yeah, why the lead time?
I don't know. They just, because everybody's
the
ordered them.
parts.
The state orders everything. The 2006 Volvo right now, I got parts for that the last time, and they told me that parts for that truck's gonna start becoming obsolete this year. You know, so in the state, every place you go, the state's got 100 trucks sitting there waiting to be built. And right now, Western Star's a year and a half out, Max 2 years out. International's a year and a half out. The only one I haven't talked to is Kenworth to see how far out they were. So we're gonna have to really start trying to figure out a way to do them every 10 years, 10 years, because Cornell's calling for, I think now, to trade out your town stuff every 6 years. So,
Well, they can share some
you
of their
know, you,
outlet, and maybe we will.
and you keep it 20 or 15, 20 years, then you don't get nothing out of them when you send them to the auction. So, you know.
Yeah, sounds like we need a
Well,
plan.
Okay, I think
So that's all.
it would be a good idea for the town in general to have a a 5-year financial plan, a 5-year capital plan, and a 10-year highway equipment plan. I know you and I have talked about a 5 to 10-year plan for road repairs in general. So I think maybe we could make this a little bit more comprehensive and address both a road plan and an equipment plan. Not to mention, we've been talking about Cat Elbow and how it relates to future highway equipment. So I think it's good to map that out.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you, Rick. Any questions for Mr. Jaycott tonight for the board?
Go ahead.
I didn't hear any.
Oh, okay.
I just say thank you for the road sweep. I noticed some communities did that recently and some didn't. Ours did, and I think it was much appreciated. So thank you, Rick, and thank you, team.
You're welcome.
Rick, the road that was graded was Betzler Road.
Bessler Road.
Is that Chad?
I think it is Chad. Thank you, Rick. Ms. Rosspaw, do you have a town clerk report for us tonight?
I do. It's kind of short and sweet, other than, and which I'll get to the end. I had a voicemail when I came in this evening. I'm just going to run it across the board, get a little feedback, but not spend too much time in it. Starting with the town clerk report, I don't really have much to report from the clerk's office other than Thursday, April 1st, I spent a lot of time with the individuals who do training for the Williams Law program from New York State. I got to spend a few hours with one of the head individuals named John, and he taught me a lot of things about my Williams Law program that I didn't know. In addition to that, we did get a whole updated system, which is current to 2021, which we were not operating on. With that being said, I went ahead and made the adjustments for my office when it comes to registering the vital statistics. What this new program does is it automatically updates all of our records, archives them with the state. So if anything were to happen in the location that our records are being housed, from this point at least further, all those records will be safe in Albany and the state of New York. So I thought that was important for hopefully some big changes moving into the new town hall and record storage and further. In addition to that, I think it's important to protect those records with the highest integrities. And I believe the state of New York being housed in Albany was our best choice. The second thing from the town clerk's report, I had received a voicemail from a company named Bergman. They are an environmental practice leader. The man's name in specific is Dave Plant. And he apparently is working on a large solar project here in Lodi. He had indicated that he has already spoke with Dave Keeler, I assume down at the Buildings and Codes, and he is ready to fill out and return his application for building. He was, as it was a voicemail, was very non-specific, but his one specific question was, would the town planning board or the town board in itself like a presentation on their specific project, which is a solar farm in the town of Lodi? Is anybody interested in this meeting?
Board?
Yeah.
Yes from Mr. Batman. Seth, Luke?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea.
Agreed. Yes, please, Connie.
Okay, gentlemen, I will make sure that we do that. My next report is on tax collection. Tomorrow is my appointment to completely turn over our tax roll. We had balanced out right down to the penny again this year. That's always a good thing. To the best of my understanding, but keep in mind it has to be authorized by the county, by my configurations. Our interest amount, which will be the last payment made to supervisor, is $2,697.70 in interest fees. It was a great tax collection season. Things went smoothly, especially considering all the restrictions, financial circumstances. Our community did very well. We were one of the last people to receive our roll. We were one of the first people to return it. And to the best of my knowledge, we are right on A+ with that. I don't really have much more to report. There is no report from Vital Statistics, and that's all I really have.
Thank you, Connie. Anybody have any questions for Connie
Okay,
tonight?
Yeah, thanks Connie for that summary. Looks like you did a really good job, and the community did a good job getting things in and turned around. Question is on our delinquency. I believe we
Yes,
we really had good performance compared to other communities.
correct.
Do you happen to know where we are for that, figure wise?
Figure wise and how much delinquencies was the overall of delinquencies. Give me 1 minute to do one quick roll
Okay.
call here. If you take a rough estimate, if you want a specific one, I'll have to log into the program. But I want to say that we were somewhere around 25,000 in delinquencies, but we were well over $1.5 million in paid.
Okay.
So I mean, the ratio is, and people paid, sorry, I'm trying to get to the real numbers as we talk here. People had paid so much in January. We normally see a higher penalty or interest rate, whatever, which way you want to see that, for late payments, but we didn't. I'm going to pause 1 minute. I'm not very good with this computer and talking, so if you don't mind.
All good, Connie. I mean, very
You
well done
wanted-
by the folks in Lodi, getting their taxes in on time. Good for them, good for us. That's great.
Luke, you wanted the unpaid portion in specific?
Yeah, and how we were doing there. Yeah, just kind of as a monitor, year to year, we kind of just briefly
Okay.
discussed that, make sure our community's tracking positively.
Okay.
And at 25K out of 1.5 million, I'd say that's very good.
Connie, if you'd like some extra time, we can certainly give that to you. We can move on, and when you have the answer, you can bring it back up. Does that work?
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. I will we'll give her some time. We'll move on to the library report from Mr. Batten. Do you have that for us today, Paul?
We do, and this should work as far as getting back to Connie. This will be relatively brief. Everything's going well at the library. Still on an appointment basis for being able to browse in the library itself. And I don't know exactly if I don't know if there's a plan about timing on that, or if that's according to, I should have found out about this. There may be guidelines for that we just haven't got to yet. But at any rate, everything's going well. Otherwise, we have a new storage shed that has been delivered and is in the process of being personalized for our uses. And it's a nice little building. Well, it's not that little, but it's good. It looks good. It's sturdy. And other than that, all the same programs we have been having are still going on. There is a writers support Zoom meetup. That's because they're trying to get working on poetry and trying to create a poetry, TREE, both for kids and adults. So that's something all you poets out there can be thinking about. And that's it, other than the other usual things. You can go to the library, LodiLibrary.net website, and get all the specific information about what's happening. And if you don't have access to the internet, there's a phone number that's 582-6218. So you can get all the information you need calling that number. And that's about it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul. We've had a lot of, my family's had a lot of success just giving a quick call ahead to the library. I think we've only been delayed once and they were like, okay, just give us 15 minutes or so. And then I don't know if folks know, but we have a wonderful new resource at the Lodi Library in Nora Snyder, who I believe lives in Tompkins County and is a poet, a fairly well-regarded poet. So I think she's sort of leading the charge here and doing a good job.
Yeah, she is doing a good job. She's a great program and coordinator and works does wonderful job with kids.
Yeah, she does a really great job with the online, I think it's Zoom story time or something like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. With that, I will move to accept the highway report and the town clerk report. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Latini. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Reports accepted. Anytime you want to jump back in there, Connie, let me know, but no pressure. Up next.
I'm just waiting for my report to update.
Okay. Committee reports. Mr. Thomas, anything on the agriculture, environment, or infrastructure fronts?
Not really, just one real quick thing just for the public. Now that the warmer weather's getting here, it means stuff growing in the lake again. And there's a program called PRISM. It's a partnership for regional invasive species management. It's run out of Hobart and William Smith, and they're asking for people who want to volunteer to basically monitor the lake from the shoreline for invasive macrophytes. If you're interested in more information, you can contact Megan Harris, and her email is MHARRIS, M Harris, and that's at hws.edu. And that's all.
Great. I'll add here, since this is a good time to add this, I've been getting some communications about the CARES Act funds that have been allocated to the town. Initially, we were informed that we'd be getting $170,000 in CARES Act funds, and those are to be spent in very specific ways. Recently learned that when they announced the 170, they did not announce village awards. And I have just learned that village awards will come out of town awards. So a pure assumption on my part is that we'll lose about 20% of those funds to the village. They make up about 20% of our population, so I assume that's the attribution. And then for those funds, most towns and villages and municipalities will be using these funds to replace lost sales tax revenue. Since we don't have that here in the town, we're limited in what we can spend it on. We have until the end of 2024 to spend it, and they anticipate that it will be coming to us within the next few months. The one easy investment would be in water, sewer, or broadband, though that amount of money, $130,000, probably won't put too big of a dent into anything like that. I did see a line in the legislation that said to respond, let me see this, to respond to the COVID-19 public health emergency or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits, or to assist impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. I think tourism, travel, and hospitality sort of might free up our ability to spend that money a little bit. So just wanted to plant the seed in board members' heads or even in the public's head of possible ways to spend this, since we don't necessarily have revenue that was lost to make up for, and I don't believe that it'll go too far in water, sewer, or broadband, but still willing to explore that. Fair enough. Up next on committee reports, economic development, planning, and tourism. Anything on that front, Mr. Batman?
Okay, well, I was looking through the magazine publication we get from the association.
That's where I pulled that from.
That's the one, yeah. And I know specifically there's an emergency broadband benefit program. It's on page 32 in that publication, but basically discounts of $50 to $75 a month for low-income households will start before the end of April. And it's going to, well, it's anybody who meets the criteria, but provides that discount and also up to $50 a month on a regular basis per month for low-income households. And there's also there's money that's available for laptops in that also.
$100 for a tablet or computer.
Yeah. So
Great.
it looks like, well, it's something that I think I'm going to check that. I'm going to find out what we need to have in order to get that information to the people who might need it. So that, I don't know, I mean, it says signups for the pandemic internet benefits are expected to begin within the next 60 days. As the FCC has yet to establish the system needed to work with internet providers. I don't know what that means, if they're trying to do the cart before the horse or what.
Sounds like the program's been announced, but they don't have the sign-up forms yet. But it looks like it's coming within the next 2 months. This also says that eligible households include those with students receiving free or reduced price school meals, supplemental nutrition SNAP beneficiaries, Medicaid participants, as well as those getting Lifeline phone and internet service, receiving Pell Grants, or having been laid off or had a substantial loss of income since February of last year. So,
Yeah.
Lodi having a high percentage of fixed income folks, I suspect that this is
Pretty wide. It's a broad net, really.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Paul. That's excellent.
But that's,
Luke, sorry.
Go ahead, Connie, please.
Was Paul finished? I feel like I interrupted
no,
there.
go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Forgive me for saying 25,000. I don't know why I came up with that. I was looking at, I don't know. I totally made that up, actually. The real number was 222,000, and that is equivalent to 133 people were not able to pay out of 1,200.
Okay, thank you.
So the amount collected was $1,681,263.41 was collected. Delinquent tax, again, was $222,026.91, leaving our interest rate at $2,697.70.
Thank you, Connie. Luke, did you have any follow-ups on that?
Yeah, Connie, how does that compare to other years? Let's say a year ago, because I thought a year ago we really were performing well, and that 220K, that's a sizable number.
I think of a lot of what happened this year is I was getting a lot of feedback from people who needed some type of stimulus and concerns that they are landlords or they rent the properties or they weren't able to pay taxes because their tenants weren't able to pay rent money. I think that issues of COVID and unemployment and availability of work, people panicking, not wanting to spend the money in case they needed it for food. I'd heard that a couple times. Those were a lot of the issues that were presented to me. I'm not exactly sure. Last year, I don't know, Luke. Last year, I'm not sure what happened this year other than the circumstance of the pandemic put some people in financial situations.
Got it.
Does it answer your question?
It does. Thank you. It's about 15%. Connie, do you mind taking an action? It doesn't have to be tonight or even this week. Do you mind taking an action to go back into last year's record to see what the initial payment rate was?
Okay, absolutely.
Can you do that? Will you share that with the full board, please?
I will see if it's available right now.
Just through an
But-
email when you have time.
When you have time.
I could have lost access to that. My warrant for collection in these programs runs out on the 2nd, but I should be able to obtain it in our old books. I'm not sure if the program's going to allow me to look that up. I'll give it a try, but no promises.
Thank you, Connie. Moving on through the rest of our committee reports. Luke, I think you just did a little bit on finance. Anything in the finance and federal affairs realm on your mind?
Nothing additional. I was wondering though, Kyle, if I believe you're going to share some county updates, just if we are in a similar boat, the tax collection as other communities, and with some of the policy changes at the county level for aged citizens, where is that, what was there a feeling of long-term, concern or anything of those, type of elements at the county level being discussed? I don't have anything to contribute from a committee perspective, but it would be good to know just to see if, is there, what is that dialogue that's occurring at the county level, given their changes and potentially other communities lagging slightly, if you will.
Yeah. So I was planning on bringing in Lisa Keschel from Real Property at some point over the next few months to just sort of brief us on how the tax exemption went. So I'll ask her to come in for May if she's available and, share all of the information that she can. Trevor, Town Board member Trevor Sibley asked me to share a concern of his. He called me yesterday or today or both and asked me to share this. He is researching ways for the town to get our agricultural land returned to us from the National Forest. So I talked to Mr. Fisher this morning and asked him to, I think Mr. Sibley talked to Mr. Meares, and I told Mr. Fisher that Mr. Meares did not discourage Trevor from wondering if eminent domain was a possibility with our agricultural land. So I've asked Mr. Fisher to look into it. Just wondering, I guess, if any board members have any thoughts. I didn't think it was, I told Trevor I didn't think it was a feasible solution, but he seemed to think that there was some language that might give us an avenue. So I guess I'll just bounce it off any other board members if we should not direct Mr. Fisher to do any research.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting approach. Trevor shared the sort of the statutory verbiage, and I think it's worth investigating. Like I said, it's interesting, and it'd be good to get a legal professional to weigh in on it. That would be my recommendation.
I definitely agree with that.
Okay then, Mr. Meares.
He had also mentioned that Congressman Reed's office was working on something to do with the federal government honoring past agreements and wanted us to follow up with Congressman Reed's office. Luke, do you recall what that issue was and what you need us to do?
I do. So basically, Mike, if you can remember back, or try to remember back many years ago, we investigated sort of it was immediately after we hired the Cornell cooperative extension student who was receiving their bachelor's project by working for our town over the summer. I believe they would earn the minimum wage, and in return, they categorized all of our roadways, culvert location. They gave us the GPS coordinates, and they set up the Excel spreadsheet with that detail. Part of the summary of that detail was a quantification of the roads that are owned or have property adjacent to, whether one side or both sides of the road, of the hectare forest. And it was sort of an awakening for the board that we had that much road frontage that was basically owned by the forest, and that they basically do not pay for road upkeep. So the taxpayers of Lodi subsidize maintenance of those roads for their front. And so that was the premise of his report to the board. We took an action a few months later, Mike, if you may remember, to look into any agreements that had been made. And I believe Nancy at the time found an agreement. And basically the agreement was that we waive, the town of Lodi waive their right, to any maintenance or road maintenance monies or funds coming back to the town in lieu of payment for logs, which disproportionately went out. The payment goes to the county, and then the county redistributes that amongst, I believe, Covert and Lodi. And so it was roughly a 30-page contract. You and I had read through it, and we found the clause that basically waived our rights. And it made absolutely no sense why someone would do that, sign off on that from a town perspective, because you're basically foregoing future income for maintaining those roads. You then took the action as directed by Lee to reach out to a special counsel. You investigated a little bit, had the documentation, and then reached out to special counsel that was more involved with contract law for municipalities and environmental, land type situations. And that follow-up, what I remember from that follow-up is that it came back that we would have to litigate, and it would be a very uphill battle to nullify that contract, and it would also have to be put on a bill and then voted with. So more or less, it was a very, very rigid and very difficult to overturn type document. Now, the problem is we've not been able, as a board and me personally, to locate that same contract. I do remember who signed it, and it was a 1981 signature, at least from the town perspective. And if we could find that, that is what's Congressman Reed's office was interested in, is that specific contract which waived our right as a community to take in monies from the federal forest in response to maintaining their roads. I do plan on having a conversation with Jody, who is or was the manager, I still believe is, of the federal forest for our region, and just to see if she's open to any form of road sponsorship. Some of those roads are in tough shape. I know we have some FEMA funds for several of those roads, but they may or may not include the scope that she's looking for in terms of maintenance. So again, she was open to a dialogue, and I think that's great, but I really wanted and encouraged Trevor to identify and find that contract, and then that sort of tells us where things are at. So that's what I can remember, Mike, from 7-8 years ago.
Got a better memory than me, my friend.
Well,
But I think that's where Trevor was asking us to go, was back down that path again. So I guess at some point we need specific direction from the town board, what they want us to do, and okay us to spend the money to get there. Frank, do you have any thoughts on it from the county standpoint? From when you were as the county attorney, do you recall any contract like that?
No, I don't recall anything related that I dealt with that related to the national forest down there. Excuse me, I'm mistaken. I do recall something, but I don't recall the substance of it. I'm sorry. Some years ago that subject came up on 1 or 2 occasions. I can't even remember the specifics of what the subject was.
Yeah, the law that's in effect is something to the effect of forests in rural schools or logging in rural schools or something like that. And that's the legislation that The forest can log on the land, half of the sales, half of the money goes to the county, and then the county distributes it as they see fit.
But that would have been under, when Fran Hurd was the supervisor.
That is correct. That was 1981. So exactly 40 years ago.
About 10 years ago, we might have been able to talk to Fran, but
That's true. This came up about 7, I want to say 7 or 8. So the other thing that I remember is the intern, Cornell intern, he estimated, again, there's a formula based on one side of road ownership, both sides of roads, width of road, if there's a ditch, non-ditch, et cetera, all of that in terms of maintenance costs, and used a formula that was provided by the federal forest for communities to look at what type of, sort of reciprocation should be available. So he used their own formula, and it was about 44,000 based on the linear feet or mileage in, one side, two sides of roads, et cetera. So we, his synopsis was that we were losing $44,000 per year, per annum, and that goes back again 7 or 8 years. That's significant, so that's what sort of drove the inquisition with Mike.
Do you think we can locate the intern's report?
We have located the intern's report, but that was an addendum, that sort of special summary that we weren't expecting. And Lee actually found the report, the PDF, sent it to me, but it is excluding the addendum, which was the roadways. I forget the name of it, but it was like roadways, Town of Lodi roadways for right of way for hectare forest, or something like that. And I did go as far as to find that engineer. He does remember doing the project, but he does not have any of the paperwork from the project. And I also called the Cornell Cooperative Extension to see if they would have anything on file from his project, and they did not.
Lee's email might be the last hope there, which I don't have access to, but Lee might.
But Mike, if you could think back, maybe, I don't know what the legal requirements are for your mail servers and backup, but if you could think of what lawyer you sent that to, or the law firm, because I remember seeing you showed me your correspondence, sort of as a printout from that individual. I believe it was a female associate. So if that rings any bells, and you would have obviously faxed it or emailed that PDF to her for her analysis.
Okay, I'll try to remember and check that route. We won't do much though until we get specific directions from the supervisor.
Fine.
Except just try to look up this old information.
Okay, and Luke, I'll take my cues from you on that one. You've got the institutional knowledge there. So
I don't suppose there would be anything upstairs in our archives.
I can look. I don't know how well it's organized or what would be in there, but I can rifle through some filing cabinets.
Well, let me know when you're going to do that, and I'll see if I can give you a hand.
Okay. As an aside, Luke, I did have a email back and forth with Jody recently about the ag land, and just touching base in particular. She had actually reached out about the parcel on Katy Road that's being sold by the county. And she had a line in her email that said, need to know if we need to take it off of our list to purchase. And so I shot back and said, I'd love to see that list. And she would not give me the list. Just wanted to throw that in. All right, thank you for that. Mike, Frank, Luke, we'll all we'll join together via email and see if we can track that down.
Right.
Building committee update, we have not met as a building committee in quite a while, 6 weeks or so, though I suspect after we get through new business tonight, we'll have plenty of things to work on. And then Seth, did you have anything for building committee?
Nope.
Thank you. Water committee, I did form this water committee early on in 2020. I don't necessarily think it needs to continue to give updates since we have passed the baton to the village. I will say it looks like the village is going to get really lucky on the timeline. There's an incredible amount of money floating around out there for this stuff now. And if Congress passes the infrastructure plan as expected, I think engineers are going to be seeing a windfall here over the next few years. So it's a good time to be in the water and sewer business. But that is in the village's hands now. As for a county board report and town supervisor remarks, this is one of those odd meetings where our town meeting is before the county meetings. So I did not have a county meeting last week. I do have some prepared remarks that I'll share. The awarding of a bid for the county sale of the 58-acre parcel on Keedy Road did move out of committee. It did not move out of committee, so there has been no action on that. It's possible that the winning bid could still be awarded at our upcoming meeting this Tuesday, but it's being handled by the Public Works Committee, which I am not a part of, so I'm not really in the loop there. Last I had heard, they were going to go back to the high bidder, who they did not identify to me, and ask for maybe a deed restriction or something like that. So I mean, I don't know enough. I'm just really not in the loop, sort of on purpose on that. My committee has been working on the room tax laws in an attempt to increase compliance across the county. Bruce Murray, who's the owner of Boundary Breaks, and he is also this year's chairman of the Chamber of Commerce Board. We're going to keep working on this for the years to come. The money collected from the room tax law, it goes back into our county's tourism promotion efforts. And I'm really happy to have a couple of Lodi guys and me and Bruce leading the charge on how this money is spent and how effectively it's spent. We're also using that room tax money to fund this new grant program at the county level that I've talked about. That should increase our access to art and culture, as well as giving local businesses and organizations some help, some extra help in creating tourism-based events and projects. That's all I have for now. I have been told that there is a lot to talk about at this upcoming county meeting on Tuesday. So you might want to catch the live stream, though the meetings are once again open to the public. That is all I have for supervisor and county board report tonight. Does anybody have any questions about any county activity? It's a lot of outrage culture at the county level, a lot of people yelling. I try not to do that. I try to be the great mediator, but everybody doesn't want me to do that. All right, on to new business. First thing that we have, a couple of housekeeping items. The first resolution here is the acknowledgement of completion of the audit of the town justice. I will move to introduce that resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Batman. So like I said, a little bit of housekeeping. We do this every year. We provide the resolutions and the audits to the state. This one is for the town justice. The one we have up next is for tax collector. The ones that they do not have done are the clerk and the supervisor. So we can take these one at a time until we've got them all done. Are there any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Same thing up next, acknowledgement of completion of the audit of the tax collector. I will move to introduce this resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, reluctantly from Mr. Thomas. Any discussion? Smirks from the audience about my use of adjectives, but hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Up next, piece of new business, a resolution to improve, let me actually get the actual title. Resolution, Lodi Town Board authorizes acquisition of real property. This is to purchase the former Lodi Presbyterian Church at 8591 State Route 414 in Lodi, New York. I will make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Proud second from Mr. Batman. Any discussion? I mean, I'll start by saying this is a long time in the making. We've been in negotiations since early to middle of last year. With this, I can release some details since it's on the table. We negotiated with the former Lodi Presbyterian Church to take acquisition of the property as they dissolved their, I can never remember the word, parish, for lack of a better word. I'm sorry, Ben. And moved back down to Hector, where the Presbytery continues to operate. The town made an offer of $67,000 for the parcel, which is approximately 2 acres with an existing building on it that I hope you folks have visited. It is also the home to the Lodi Food for All food pantry that does not have any income requirements and is welcome to anybody, Lodi resident or not, to come and gather food on Saturdays from 2 to 4. The town's promise to allow the food pantry to continue is why we received the generous discount on the property. And with that, this motion is before us. We have negotiated a lease with the food pantry that Mr. Fisher feels adequate to protect the town's interest. After we, if and after we pass this resolution, ideally we would enter into an agreement for architectural services to begin the design phase of our new town hall, which will consist of an addition to the existing building. The addition will house secure offices for town offices and court offices, as well as a space for the food pantry to continue operating. Any questions? Any discussion? Any comments?
I think it's great.
Thank you, Paul. I was hoping you guys would say something. I didn't want it to be that easy. I do see a very slight typo in the resolution. Oh, Frank, I see that. I see the scowl, Frank. First resolve clause, final line, dated February 25th, 22021. Supposed to be 2021. Instead, it looks like we got a Maryland zip code.
That's a little while from now, isn't it? So, yeah, I'm sorry. Kyle, I actually noticed that later and corrected it on my copy, and unfortunately, you got the copy before I corrected that. So, yes, you want to make, if you want to make the motion to amend that, that might be appropriate. Sorry.
I will cross all of our T's, and to stay in the correct time period, I'll move to amend the final line of the first resolve clause from 22021 to 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Batman. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Amendment carried. We are back on the discussion of the resolution. Any further discussion? I'll just add that the purchase price is an incredible discount. It's an incredible saving to Lodi taxpayers. Whether you see it as a $80,000 to $90,000 discount from fair market value, or whether you see it as a $250,000 discount, as I see it, because of what it would cost the town to build such a building with prevailing wage. Either way you look at it, it's pretty impressive, and we must be thankful to the Presbytery, to Pastor Ben Masters, and Marty Mazinski, and everyone else who helped get this across the finish line, including Mr. Mears's 5%. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, team. That's been quite the journey, and I appreciate all of your help. I did have an item for discussion under new business for the National Forest Agricultural Land. We have addressed that in the Federal Affairs Committee. So unless anybody has anything to add, I'd like to just move on from that. Fair enough. On to old.
Kyle, if I may, I should add, I can see no reason why we can't proceed forward to close on the property sometime next week. So there shouldn't be a problem with that unless something else arises. So
Great. You told me that this morning, and I let the attorney for the pantry know, and they're gonna, I think they're gonna try to schedule something with you ASAP.
Very good.
Thank you, Frank.
How about
Kyle?
funding, Kyle?
Mr. Meares and then Connie. Funding?
Is the funding available and ready for closing?
Yes, we have a building reserve that has cash in it, so I think it's as simple as writing a check.
Okay.
Thank you. Connie?
Rick pushed a button and hung up on you, and I was not able to hear your supervisor report. And could you please email me that? And could I take a moment to give Luke his statistic before we go on to the old business?
Perfect.
Please.
Yes, please.
So last year, the unpaid portion was $146,083.93. The paid portion of 2020 was $1,701,459.14. So we did have about $100,000 increase on unpaid bills this year,
Thank you.
give or take.
Interesting.
That's, I don't think that's really bad considering the pandemic, what that's done to landlords. And I mean, tenants for sure, but I mean, as far as our tax base goes, I would guess a lot of communities are in a lot worse shape than we are.
I think all things
Yeah, sorry.
considered, we did pretty well. We started out really strong. It does seem like a high number. That's very important to our operational monies. But I think all things considered, I'm still proud of the community.
I've heard a lot of those anecdotal reports about folks who rent homes or B&Bs and campgrounds and stuff in town who just didn't get a lot of business through the middle of last year. They said, most of them said it picked up towards the end of last year, towards late in the tourism season. But I've heard a few of those sort of, yeah, I might have to sell this to pay the taxes on this. So we'll see if we have a waterfall effect. All right, on to old business. Thank you, Connie. Is the architectural services contract with AJH Design for the new town hall design. This was tabled at the end of 2020, so I will move to bring it back on the table. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Batman, and we're here for discussion. So this was negotiated last year with Dave Adams and Andrew Harding of AJH Design out of Elmira Heights. If you recall, this is the architectural services proposal from 5 submissions that the building committee recommended to the town board. AJH initially came to us with a figure of approximately $42,000. We renegotiated to do some of the work ourselves, and we got that number down to, it's an all-in number with reimbursables of $36,265. The contract is in your meeting packet, which I'm checking out. Okay. And
what was the total there, Kyle? 30.
So what it is, it's a not to exceed agreement of $35,140. However, there are reimbursables, which is essentially mileage, gas and mileage, et cetera, of $125, bringing the total for their services to $36,265. Design and construction phase reimbursable expenses. So we reviewed this, at fair length, I think in November or December, and nothing's been altered from it. So it's back in front of us again. And, it's 43 pages, it's considerable. We did lay out the hourly rates as the building committee requested. And inside that is also all of our building committee documents that we used to get to where we are. Any comments, questions, thoughts?
I was wondering if we had made a decision about a community space in the town hall. Maybe I should have mentioned it in my town clerk report, but as the weather breaks, I'm getting a numerous amount of calls from parents of our community wondering about programs for their children, a place where they can go. Is there a type of rec program? In addition to that, now that the weather is broke, we're also starting to receive the complaints of children playing down at the fireman's pond here at the end of the road. I'm not so sure that's a safe situation. And I was wondering if we had came up with an idea or anything as far as a community room for the new town hall as a part of our community building.
Sure. So yeah, we initially, the building committee initially had some discussions about a community room. And then when we started, as a board, started talking about the budget mixed with the increase in building material costs, which skyrocketed between when the building committee started and today, we're sort of at a point where the budget that we've agreed upon, which has many facets to it, not necessarily agreed upon, but informally agreed upon, does not include a community room. The budget is pretty tight for what we need. We, as a building committee, have been unable to meet a preliminary floor plan at 2,000 square feet without sacrificing the needs of each office. However, we expect that the architect will be much more clever than the small group of amateur architects that we've gathered as part of our building committee. So, I would still make the case that there's room in the budget to make this a little easier. But we have not codified through resolution a finalized budget.
Okay, so I guess my reply should be at this point and still in communications.
Yeah, I mean, so if you are getting any communications or phone calls or emails of residents who are either asking for a service or warning us of danger, like the kids playing at the fireman's pond, yeah, keep bringing those to us or forward them to us so that we know what's going on and we can make decisions on it. I see Nancy Cook in the audience raising her hand, and let's do it. Why not? Hi, Nancy.
Can the CARES Act funds be called for some of these items that you're bringing up right now?
Not that I'm aware of, Nancy. It's very specific on how the money can be spent, and I got a little bit excited that the language was slightly vague in that one. Assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, or to assist impacted industries as tourism, travel, and hospitality. I don't think so. I don't. I guess the possibility exists, I'm spitballing here, the possibility exists that there's money in the CARES Act funds that we might have used in our budget as a one-time expense, and maybe we can replace that. But no, I don't think we can apply the CARES Act funds to a new town hall. But good thinking.
Team, just one thing, Connie, based on that feedback of kids swimming at the fireman's pond, and they reconfigured that pond a few years ago, and it has really steep sides, so it could catch a kid off guard. I'm wondering if that feedback that you've received, we really need to let the firehouse know, that feedback exists, that kids are there and they're getting complaints.
Well, they're barbecuing there, they're playing ball in the field, they're swimming in it,
Okay.
There's a lot going on. They're using it actually as a local park gathering ground, and all the neighbors, especially Patty and Louis Barkman, which is our closest neighbor here, are the lead in the complaints on that, there has been others as people drive by, they're concerned that there's
Got it.
human bodies in there.
So can we convey, can you take the action to convey those concerns to the firehouse?
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. Mhm.
And,
Thank you.
Mr. Maris and Mr. Fisher, maybe some eminent domain on that firehouse pond so that we can make it a park. I'm just joking. I'm sorry. I'm full of. Thanks, Frank got it. Frank got it. Mike's taking. Mike's got his school board hat on. He's like, park. What do you mean? Mr. Batman, did you have any thoughts on any of this? Paul, did you have any thoughts
On the pond, I mean, on what?
on the town hall?
Oh, well, I definitely think we need a community room, one way or the other. There's got to be a way to make it happen. And I think, I don't know, with the, I don't know what needs to be, well, there's nothing that can be decided about that tonight, obviously. It requires some effort to try to figure out how things are going to happen. But I just think in the investigation that I've done with the finances, I think it's feasible for us to have a community room that is going to be operating kind of jointly as with the pantry, I think. So it's serving, has more than one purpose. But I think there's a way to make that, create that space that's big enough to function as a community room. And I think it's something that we really need. I think the community thinks that we need something like that too. So, given my interpretation of the finances, what I've seen about with it is that we've got the money. It's just a matter of whether we want to spend it or not.
Thank you, Paul. There's a lot of moving parts, obviously, to the town's finances, particularly when it comes to bonding money for a town hall project as well. I think the last we've identified some grants that we have. We've identified some grants that we want to apply for. We've identified some funds from the abandonment of Ames Road that we intend to apply to our town hall, and we've identified a bond amount that we're considering. I think I'll say, a 5-year capital plan and a 5-year financial plan for the town, I think should be a paramount priority for us. That way we know exactly what we can spend through the next 5 years, and I think that's important. But I think if we're going to have any sort of board conversation about how to fund this project, it's any further funds are essentially coming from the bond. When Luke and I had done our investigation of the bonding, we had identified sort of 3 bond amounts. I had identified 3 bond amounts with a $25,000 annual payment, a $30,000 annual payment, and a $35,000 annual payment. And that changed our borrowing power between $400,000, $475,000, and $550,000. Where we are right now is pretty complicated again because of the building costs have risen so steeply so quickly. Where we are right now is essentially we're looking to build a very bare bones office structure for somewhere between 750 and 800,000. That Luke had identified a funding plan without grants in it that had totaled something like 640,000, I think is where we had gotten there. I might be a little off there, but that's very close. With the 125,000 that we have confirmed from the dormitory authority, that brings us up to a budget of about $775,000. And that's pretty bare bones. And we haven't been able to fit that square peg into the round hole to get exactly what we need just yet. So the question, I suppose, going back to it that we've discussed before, would be the bond amounts. So the $775,000 budget would include a $25,000 annual payment. If you wanted the budget to be $850,000, we could go to a $30,000 annual payment. And if you wanted the budget to be $925,000 to $930,000, you'd be talking about a $35,000 annual payment. And obviously that higher figure, the highest figure would likely be what is needed if you wanted to build any sort of additional room, like a community room or anything like that. So yeah, to me, that's the discussion. If you want to increase the budget to be had, 25,000, 30,000, or 35,000 per year. I guess the last piece that I'll throw out there for reference is, you know, what was it, 20 something years ago, we built the, was it 20 years ago we built the highway barns, or 15 years ago? And that was a $47,000 bond payment. So, and we could afford that then. 20 years later, it's a little, you know, that's a lot less 20 years later. Did you, sorry, that was a lot of rambling. Did you get all that, Paul?
Yes.
Any thoughts from any other board members? Okay. All right. Any other discussion, questions? We have a.
If I may,
Please.
as you and I discussed, and right at the moment, I'm not looking at a resolution to enter into that contract. I don't find it for whatever reason. But as you and I discussed earlier, it should be amended to indicate that you're authorized, directed to enter into that contract, subject to the closing on the real property.
Thank you.
In that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Frank. I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay. No, I'm done.
Authorized and directed pending closing, subject to closing?
It's subject to a closing on the real property.
Okay. So that's an amendment that Frank is asking us, indicating that we should likely do. So we don't have a resolution in front of us. This is essentially approving the supervisor to sign the contract that's been presented. So I will make the motion to amend the resolution to say the Lodi Town Board authorizes and directs the town supervisor to sign the architectural services agreement subject to closing on real property for the former Lodi Presbyterian Church. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Thomas. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Resolution to authorize and direct the supervisor to enter this agreement is on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. I did speak to Dave Adams of AJH Design this morning, and he has been raring to go for a long time. So he said it'll probably be a couple of weeks of lead time before they have everything gathered, but in about 2 weeks after the closing, they should be hitting the ground running. They've been anticipating this, so that's great. Thank you, team. Good job, everybody, getting everything to do with the new building over the finish line. Is there any other old business tonight?
Yes.
Mr. Batt.
What kind of directions are we giving to the building committee at this point in terms of how they're going to approach any kind of, I mean, we don't have a figure for them to work with on, developing the final design.
Yeah, so informally, we have a recommendation. Informally, we have a range. And I would say that range, let me pull this back up. Thought we had passed that conversation, Paul.
What What are you wanting to know?
So I'm looking for my notes here.
Well,
So,
we
yeah,
can go,
at the moment, with all of our resources and the lowest possible bond payment, we can direct the architect at about an $840,000 to $850,000 budget. If the board wants to kick that bond payment up $5,000 a year, that'll get us to $920,000. What I'll say is we have not engaged as a building committee here in a couple of months now. So if anything has changed on the ground in terms of cost of building materials or the climate for building, my concern here is that with all the money floating out there from governments right now, and then the Infrastructure Act being passed, engineers are about to be flush with jobs and with money. So we really need to get in there to get our building built because we are a small project. And I just don't know at the moment what the costs look like for altering, the base plans that we have. So
that's right.
yeah,
That's
so
why
I think maybe a building.
Concerned about this.
It's all good. I think this is a building committee conversation with the architect to get a baseline of understanding for where we go from here. What's possible, what's not possible, unless this board wants to take action to solidify a budget number that's more permanent.
Well, some of it, to me, it seems, depends on what can we get for 840,000 as opposed to 950,000? I mean, what's going to be the differences in the building with those kind of amounts, which may end up determining how much we go for, how much we want to borrow.
Agreed.
So
Paul,
is there a way to develop? Now, see, this is going to slow things down too much, though. I was thinking, okay, we get a design for the 840, and we get a design for the 950, and then.
well, so the architect's going to have some baseline understanding of what it costs to build for a municipality. They're going to know what the cost per square foot to build is at the moment, or if they don't, I'd be really disappointed.
Yeah, they've got it.
I think the building committee could sit down with the architect as soon as possible within the next 2 weeks and just ask these questions. What's it look like at 842? What's it look like at 915? What's it look like at 975 or 985 or whatever it is? 985 seems to be, if we didn't get everything on our wish list at 985, I'd be pretty shocked. The other thing I will remind you is that the town intends on building a stick-built structure. So our bond term will be much lower than traditional 30-year bond term. That's why our payment might be a little bit higher, instead of a longer term. If we chose to build a more expensive, longer, more durable building, we could extend that bond term, but our costs would probably go through the roof. So I think we've found a nice middle ground here.
Yeah, I'm with Mr. Batman that you really, we agreed to say, okay, we'll buy it for $67K. There's an upcharge, roughly $80K for the closing costs and whatnot. And I really think there's a tremendous amount of positive, effort in everything that's been done up to this point. And I just, again, caution the board about over committing and overspending. We just learned that $220,000 of our tax base wasn't paid. Now it's predicated that we have a lot of renters and a lot of rental properties. I don't really feel that's the case. I've lived here pretty much my entire life. I know what's available in general for rent, and there's really not much. So I don't think that premise has a lot of validity if we actually vetted it. So I'm just, again, cautioning the board about overspending. There's again, fantastic energy going into this, fantastic synergy with the food pantry. And I'm just concerned that it's going to get out of hand and we're going to be back up at that $1 million figure that no one or very few in our community want to pay for or want to have it adversely impact their tax base. So I agree with Mr. Batman, and sort of the lesson wasn't part of the committee, but the prior committee that ran up the bill unknowingly, perhaps, at Hunt Engineering, all of these changes and flux and flow, and that costs money to redesign, and those options, and that's time, and those are billable hours. So I'm fully aligned with Mr. Batman that the next imperative step is to get the board together, maybe have a workshop or 2 workshops, Connie can put that in the paper, and really vet out financially what can our community afford. And then based on that aligned estimate, that's what you take to the architect and say, this is what we have. Sharpen your pencil. We're a rural, poor community. We're not Ithaca. We're not Canandaigua. Let's work with this and move forward. I think any other approach, even good-hearted and good intentioned, will leave us in a less than optimal spot.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all, Luke. I think, what I'd like to see personally, I think at 842,000, it's a good chunk of money. We got the grants with it. Let's go see what we can get with that. I definitely agree that we should do the town board workshop to come upon a final number. But what I'd like to see here is for this board to be comfortable entering into this with the thought of the 25,000 annual bond payment, which is our current budget, but being flexible enough to consider the 30, because if the additional $78,000 in borrowing power gives us the opportunity to build something for the community, or to not sell ourselves short on storage space for documents and things like that, it would be good to have that flexibility. And $5,000 in annual budgeting is not insignificant, but certainly findable, certainly workable.
But to that point, I just feel a little bit like we're going to get into a position where we're going to go down the road, full charging, and then there's going to be this strife, this disagreement, derailment. And again, just would encourage the board, encourage the supervisor to put those discussions on finance and lock it down. I really think we owe it to Marty, and we owe it to the building, that wonderful, all of those attachments that Mr. Calise put together, that building committee. We owe it to them to get our ducks in line, so we can collectively, basically release something for them to go execute. I think it just, when we look at past scenarios, and maybe everyone on the call wasn't here for those past scenarios, I was, and it just, let's learn from that. Let's learn from that behavior. Let's learn from that, perhaps that disorganization. Add some organization. I know you have, preliminary numbers, and you want to get started with those prelims, but I'm really, again, encouraging the supervisor and encouraging the board to set some specific time together, have those difficult discussions, maybe even include the architect in those discussions, and let's get a figure. And that way we agree on it. We can move forward with it. It's we can communicate that to our community. I think that's our job, for transparency. And our community doesn't have this flux or this uneasiness to add into COVID and to add into those folks, that represent $220,000 of our tax base unpaid.
Absolutely. I think that's a good idea to bring all the stakeholders together. And I'd like to do that sooner rather than later. How does the board feel about a workshop open to the public in 2 weeks, April 22nd, Thursday night?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful, Kyle.
Paul, Seth, and I'll double check with Trevor.
April 22nd?
Yeah, Earth Day.
What time did you say?
In the evening, I would assume 7 o'clock, similar to this meeting, works. The next question would be, should we proceed on Zoom or should we meet in person? It might be worth having the meeting at the news site.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, Mr. Batman, Mr. Thomas, any scheduling conflicts there?
I agree, and I would really like to have it in person at this point.
Okay.
I think for this kind of, the kind of conversations we need to have about this, it needs to be done eye to eye.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilman and Supervisor, I had heard a comment from Mr. Latini to post an ad in regards to the public knowing about this workshop. Any suggestions or actually specifically an answer of where do you wish to see this posted?
It's a similar post to our town board meetings, just instead of the Lodi.
Right.
Go ahead, Luke.
So you want it in the shopper or where? Where do you want it posted
We've been
at?
doing both, right? We've been doing the Gazette and the Shopper, right?
Whatever your
yes.
official newspapers are.
Yep, do the normal thing, but instead of calling it our regular monthly meeting, call it committee meeting or workshop.
Building, you called it a building.
Town hall budget workshop is what is that okay?
What's the word? Say that wording again?
Town hall budget workshop.
Sounds good.
Noel Clausen recommends that we add new building, so new building.
New town hall workshop.
New town hall workshop.
New town hall budget workshop.
New town hall building workshop. Budget workshop.
Budget.
Budget if you're gonna discuss finance.
Budget. New town hall budget.
Well,
Sorry,
listen, please, one person say the sentence. What is it? New town hall
budget workshop.
budget. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
10 a.m. in person, Lodi Presbyterian Church, 8591 State Route 414.
8591. Thank you.
Mark Benjamin writes in the chat that would suggest a Zoom format as well in person. If it's possible, I don't know what the status of the infrastructure is over there. I don't even know if they have broadband over there at the moment. So I'll see what I can put together for some sort of online something. I just don't know what I can do just yet. Okay.
I don't know what they have there.
Yeah, I would doubt they have broadband at the moment.
Right.
Right, that sounds good. We have a workshop to resolve that. And
The architect's going to be there, right?
I'll invite him. I don't know what his availability is, but I'll invite him.
But it's going to be difficult without a professional there to give us some ballpark ideas on cost as we're coming up with ideas.
Connie, Connie, hold off on that ad until I can give you confirmation that I've got the architect coming. I'll get a hold of him first thing tomorrow morning and see if I can get him or his partner there. But I'll be in contact tomorrow one way or another.
Absolutely.
Ben, okay, great. Thank you, Ben. And thank you, Connie. Any other old business for this board this evening?
And at some point, a key to get into the building.
Yes, I assume as part of closing, I would hope. Any other old business tonight? We do have another period for public comment on the agenda. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak tonight? Hey, Ben.
Just to express my gratitude for this board's thoughtfulness and willingness to bring new life into this building. We are thrilled to move forward in this partnership. We're thrilled to hand over the keys, Paul.
Well, we're thrilled. We're thrilled to be able to move in and into a space that has already been blessed in other ways.
Yeah, and as much as I'd like to take full community credit for such a wonderful deal, I have to say this all started with Ben. Ben tracked me down when I still had a full-time job and was not an unemployed slacker. And he came to my work and over a half a glass of wine, we decided that this might be a good idea for the community. But this was really Ben's idea to get this going. So,
Thank you very much, Ben.
Any other comments from the public this evening? Okay, I have one more question for the board. Shall we continue with monthly Zoom meetings? From my perspective, again, it's a lot of work, but it works. And frankly, I think we get better attendance on Zoom than we do in person, and that's kind of nice. So I'm just wondering if anybody on the board would like to make the point to move it back to in person, but if not, I'll announce the next meeting for Zoom.
I forgot about the attendance issue, right?
What was that, Mr. Batman?
Well, I forgot about the attendance issue. I mean, see, I'm in favor of starting to do the in-person thing again. You know, with all the with all the right safeguards. But by that point, most people are going to be vaccinated, I think.
That's the hope.
I don't know. At any rate, but the attendance issue is critical. I mean, if we need,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I do think part of our challenge as a board is attendance, and I think that's every board's challenge. So I know it is more work for Kyle to prepare the packets and Connie and whatnot. But I certainly, I think they work well. You know, our attendance number is double, triple, quadrupled
Right.
in these calls, and I think that's fantastic. So
Yeah,
I'm an
that's-
advocate of continuing, at least under the short term. That'd be my recommendation as council for, you know, the remote sessions.
Yeah, I'm in lockstep with Luke there. It is a lot of work for me, but believe it or not, I really enjoy it. I like the organization.
Well, we could move into the 21st century and actually have Zoom available and in person.
Yeah.
That would be nice, and we should probably integrate that into the new building plan. But at this point, I think with the path that we're on, I don't know how much more of that sort of hardware investment we should be making in our old building.
You're right. You're right.
Luke, did you have something to add there?
No. Just a thought on new topics when we get to it. So,
Okay.
sorry.
All good. Anything else tonight, guys?
Just for new, I'm not sure what we're doing. I know there's no official summer rec. I guess that ended with Ovid support, the long, you know, probably 30, 40-year-old tradition of having an Ovid rec program. I'm not sure what we're doing. I'm not advocating that I want to lead this effort, but whomever's leading the effort from the board perspective for a summer program, obviously it will involve the library. And kind of one of the thoughts there, you know, if we have kids by the pond and they want to swim and whatnot, and I know Seneca, you know, Lodi State Park isn't a swimming park per se, but there is like a transit bus, Seneca County transit bus that you do see in Interlaken once in a while. And just thinking maybe an after-school pickup, can go to the library to the lake to library. I don't know how the logistics would work or supervision. You know, it's kind of like running the summer rec program we had in Lodi. There's, you know, 15,000 release forms and parental consent, and, you know, you have to have all the paperwork to go along with it. But just a thought out there that, you know, maybe a pilot, and talking with Jody, you know, maybe a pilot, you know, process for a couple weeks and see how it went. But that bus, I think, is a public service, you know, and we could, again, you know, give parents a little bit of relief and kids a little bit of structure and fun, you know, through that type of resourcing. So I don't know who's leading that effort this summer, but just food for thought.
That's wonderful, Luke. You know, I think we had mentioned last year when summer rec was canceled, you know, it was really disappointing, but I think we talked about this and said, maybe we can do something in Lodi. So I think that's a great idea. Has anybody in our community worked on projects like that in the past, or have connections, or, well, we don't have to throw that out there now unless there is somebody who has led that in the past. But it might be worth thinking about, you know, someone to lead that outside of the board. I mean, I'm always happy to start the inquiries and get the ball rolling, but might be nice to have a point person there in the community, whether that's somebody at the library or just somebody interested. I'll also touch base with Eric Holmberg, who serves on the Town of Ovid board, who led the summer rec program for the past couple of years. So I'll touch base with him and see what the status is, and yeah, maybe there's a multi-town effort here that might work too.
Cool.
Great idea. Anybody, any last comments on that?
Just one little comment is that, you know, the service, the SDS service, busing people, I mean, they do have the program where you pay them $5 and they'll pick you up and take you wherever you want to go. And if we had a set up some kind of agreement with them where they actually come to a particular pickup place. Pick up kids and take them to another place. It would cost some money, but that could be within the summer rec budget, possibly, depending on how the whole thing works. And they might be interested in offering discounted services for that too.
Great, good idea. Okay, so I'll have a couple of initial conversations, and then I'll get an email between either a few of us on the board or all of us on the board to continue developing the idea. Great.
Okay, one more thing. If South Seneca is not running a program, I think in the past, there was federal funds that paid for the breakfast and the school lunches that we had at the town of Lodi. So maybe they could be conveyed to the library. I can't speak, of course, on behalf of the library, but maybe that could be part of it. And then they have the pickup, they have the breakfast, and then Trumansburg may run a summer rec program. And I do know in the past, Lodi kids went to T-Burg because they would, once or twice a week get shipped to Ithaca for the pool.
Cool.
And that was
cool.
Or every day. Sorry, it's every day that they get, if they want, go to the pool. So that gives our kids, that potential opportunity to experience it, that type of activity for the summer at no or low cost.
I feel like we have a community organizer or a point person in the background on your call, Luke, but it's a little fuzzy.
And that's the boss.
Fair enough. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Not hearing any more public comment unless you interrupt me here in these last few sentences. Our next meeting will be our workshop, likely in 2 weeks. However, I need to wait to see if we have the architect on that. Our next regular board meeting will be Thursday, May 13th at 7 p.m. online on Zoom. There is a supervisor's mailing list at the bottom of every page on the Lodi website. If you are on that mailing list, I send you the Zoom invite to this meeting. So please be sure to get on that if you'd like the invite. Other than that, the details are posted on the LodiNY.com website every month, and the Zoom link is there as well. So thank you, everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn from the floor?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Batman. Is there a second?
I think Rick seconded.
I heard that, but I'll take the second from Luke. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful meeting as always. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Bye-bye.
Comments?
Bye.